Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapters 9 and 10, they've caused quite the stir in the Naruto community for a few different reasons, ranging from the reveal of Kurama, he's now inside of Himawari, to Boruto, and he's freaking out about his coma seal, to even seeing the apparent death of Inojin Yamanaka, the child of one of the original legacy characters of Naruto. This, of course, in particular, the last point, has led to another conversation in the fandom, which is, where are the OG members of Naruto's generation? Why haven't we seen any of them showing up in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex? And in today's newest Naruto Explained video, I wanted to weigh in with my thoughts on the topic. So unlike the video you've probably seen where I've discussed fans wanting Kurama to go back to Naruto, where I call it raw and uncut copium of the highest levels that people are overdosing on while sitting on a swing, listening to sadness and sorrow, eating a bowl of ramen, I'm not going to be taking that approach here. Though to clear up some confusion, it is possible to point out that people are being filled with copium in that regard to something, see their perspective, address their perspective, and still be able to explain why it is you disagree with their perspective. If you want an echo chamber, go on Twitter, go on Reddit, go on Facebook, or if you want me to lie to you about my stance on Naruto and Boruto, this is not the channel for you. I tell you exactly how I feel when I feel it. So the other reason I don't think that this is copium in this regard, it just comes down to, I think this is a valid critique of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and it's one that I've had as far back as when I first started doing Boruto content on my first channel, KRYPTONIAN Saiyan. That was something I raised. I thought that the story was missing the opportunity with the car outers and the car inners to show off the balance between the old generation and the new generation, where the older generation would fight with some of the car inners and the new gen cast would take on some of the outers. But in hindsight, I totally get the decision to not pursue that path moving forward. The story, it was showing us through the fights that some of the members of the new generation, mostly Team 7, they stood at a very high level, and it was setting the stage for the power creeps that we're seeing unfold currently. So I understand that whole reason narratively. However, right now in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, we have Konoha not just under attack once, but now twice in back-to-back days, and Shikamaru, at one point, he's even calling for all hands available to defend the village. And yet, what's the most that we've seen? We've seen some random no-name Chunin and Jonin. They just show up, and we're all going, who the hell is this? Outside of Nishi, the rest of them, we don't even know their names. And the only member of Naruto's generation who we've seen go to the front lines was Konohamaru. And based off of the short exchange that we've seen with the Hidari fight, this guy is completely out of his league. Because in that time that Hidari looks away, makes a new set of claw marks, teleports to attack Sarada, the girl's already dodged his attack and landed her own counterattack. She does all of this before Konohamaru's even able to fully react and start running over to her position. A sign that he's going to be severely outclassed in this fight, barring some major change in the narrative regarding his character, like some crazy leveling up that came in response to learning his first rival Naruto was now dead, and it caused him to break through his limits to gain more power. Barring something like that, yep, he's done. With Konohamaru though, I'm not particularly shocked at all. While he is strong, he is deceptively strong at that, to the point where he's really misunderappreciated by a lot of the fans in the fandom. He's run into 3 big problems, and he's the only one from Naruto's generation to have all 3 of these problems. He's been shown consistently fighting people who are much stronger than him, with the only person he was even in the same tier as being Ao. And even then, Konohamaru, he gets slandered because you have people who they disingenuously point to him getting knocked out by Ao by one of his drone laser attacks, and those same people leave out the only reason he was knocked out was because Boruto still hadn't learned the lessons that Naruto and Sasuke are teaching him, which is to keep your guard up and the fight's not over until you see a body. The second issue is people, they came into Boruto Naruto Next Generations and Boruto 2 Blue Vortex with expectations of him being the Kakashi for Boruto's generation, where he was that older shinobi that everybody looked to and said, that's the guy right there. All because he was able to knock out the Naraka path with a Rasengan. Not destroy it, simply knock it out and stun it long enough to escape with Ebisu, because this same pain, it was shown a few chapters later back up and running. The third thing is that people have forgotten, or they're unaware of how Konohamaru was used in Naruto, mostly because a majority of the fans, they've only consumed Naruto via the anime and they've never read the manga. Konohamaru in the manga, outside of that one moment with Pain, and with part of chapter 2 of Naruto's manga, where he and Naruto agreed to make each other rivals for the Hokage position, one day fighting for the title, Konohamaru was never set up to be a serious fighter. Anything you see like Tamari versus Konohamaru, base 16-year-old Naruto versus Konohamaru, that's all filler or it's an OVA. He wasn't, say, someone like Yamcha from Dragon Ball's manga, who started out being shown as a legitimate rival for Goku, and gradually over the course of the story, his role was reduced to being a comedic relief, even at the expense of his perception of his power in the first 200 chapters. Konohamaru, each time he was in the manga, he was used for gags to get laughs for the audience. Nothing in the manga outside of those two scenes even remotely hinted that he was going to be a future powerhouse, and even then, that wasn't a lot to go off of. But with people like, say, Sakura, Rock Lee, TenTen, we have real legitimate reasons to say, why aren't they here right now? Why don't we see any of them showing up during Code's invasion or the fight with Jura and Hidari, especially now that Jura is targeting Himawari and the sensor unit has blasted the location to everyone. Everyone's been told, go back up Team 10. They're about to get killed. One would think it would be all hands on deck in that situation, just as Shikamaru called for. Yet there's been no sign or a remote hint of a sign that any of those members are coming. If you've raised that point at any point reading chapter 9 and chapter 10, I wholeheartedly agree with you in that regard for the following reason. Just looking at the information we have, each of those three characters, they either possess the power, or in the case of TenTen, they require incredibly underrated hacks, yet they haven't been used here. While you could argue it's irrelevant, like we saw when Ishiki in that anime only scene where Konohamaru led a team of Choji and Rock Lee and TenTen and Kiba, only to have all of them except for Konohamaru get one shot by Ishiki's attack, despite Konohamaru leading the charge with a Rasengan, taking a brunt of the attack at that. Choji using the Yang release expansion jutsu to amp up his fist before the attack. Kiba in the process of using a solo version of Fang over Fang before the columns got summoned and all of them got put to sleep. If you want to say the same thing would happen here, I'm not really going to argue with you on that. I am very inclined to agree with you. And part of me just wants to see it happen in the manga, just to see the chaos that happens online when everyone starts crying that Rock Lee got his head blown off in a fight. However, I do think we are missing a chance to check in with some of that old cast, given where the circumstances are right now being this large. There aren't any civilians that need to be evacuated for the most part. One fight is taking place outside of Konoha, the other one's taking place in Konoha, but it doesn't look like there's any civilians there. You got kids on the front line. Granted, at least with Sarada, we know that she's powered up pretty high enough to be relevant in this fight. But Team 10, they're out of their league and they can be killed at any moment. Like we saw when Jura sent a spear through Inojin's chest and his stomach in an attack that should kill him, because it's very similar to what killed Neji and what killed Boruto, where his heart and his lungs, they should be destroyed given that hit. We shouldn't see anything more than Inojin give a last speech and then he just drops dead. You don't have any citizens to oversee in the hospital, so where's Sakura at? Someone who, as much as Sakura haters like to get pissy because of what this means, she is confirmed to scale over 1/3 of 6-pass chakra mode Naruto, who had Hagoromo's chakra seal when that statement was made, and to have grown stronger since the war to the point where Gar is getting pissed off in the Gar Hiden Sandstorm Mirage story at her growth because she came from no notable clan, yet she got this strong. And it makes him start training after the war because his pride as a Kage has been wounded, thinking a woman that he almost killed when she was a 12-year-old girl and he himself was 15 had grown so strong in just under a decade that she had surpassed him in power by that large of a gap. Why don't we see her anywhere on the battlefield, especially now that Sarada is confronting someone with Sasuke's chakra signature? Sakura, at the very least, from a narrative perspective, has the most reason to be out there on the battlefield with Sarada. Yet, as of now, where we are, it doesn't look like there's any indication that's going to be the case. We haven't seen Sakura since the Kawaki arc when she healed Sasuke after Jigen whooped his ass and she was healing Sarada after the Boro fight. To not include her in this Uchiha family dispute with that Sasuke Ten-Tails clone, it would be a huge missed opportunity, particularly because of the information that we have. Out of all the members of Naruto's Konoha 13, she's the only one in that group who strength-wise has gotten into that 10 tails level of power, though you can make an argument for Rock Lee, which we'll get to in a moment. Again, she is confirmed outscaling 1/3 of 6th Pass Naruto, who had Hagoromo's chakra seal. Rock Lee is a very interesting study here because we do know by the day that Naruto got married to Hinata that he was undergoing training for the 7th gate. It's something that Mike Guy was overseeing, and in the Boruto anime, we've been told that he's a master of the 8 inner gates, meaning he's now capable of using the 8th gate if need be. Just looking at where Rock Lee was in the 4th Ninja War, in order to establish his floor, assuming he got no stronger from that moment on, which we know he did, but just to establish a floor, 6th gate Rock Lee was below 7th gate Might Guy in the war. He was below War Kakashi. He was below Naruto's Sage Mode Shadow Clone that fought the 3rd Raikage, but he was strong enough to be relative to War Gar when you start comparing the scaling. If we add in the information from the Boruto movie novel, which is written by Ukyo Kodachi and based off of Kishimoto's script, we know that after Gar saw Momoshiki fight and he had briefly swapped hands with them, that he thought to himself that if Rock Lee was there on the battlefield, he could have pulled his weight, because Gar thought that Rock Lee could hold his own in that fight if Rock Lee used his full power. Which, to spell that out even further, that's not saying Rock Lee and the Boruto Kages are as strong as base Momoshiki and Kenshiki. Anyone saying that, they're being extremely disingenuous. It just means that they were within a couple of tiers, being close enough to be able to fight and not be blown out the water because they were ganging up on a stronger enemy and jumping them with the assistance of Sasuke and Naruto. A la if EMS Walk Sasuke was suddenly being jumped by the 3rd Raikage and Sage Mode Jiraiya, Rasa the Kazekage, and we'll throw Mifune in there for good measure. Sasuke wins that fight, but that other team is not going out like a punk either. While that's not enough to take down the Shinju that are out there right now, since they scale over code, that is enough to, again, at least contribute for the fight itself. With TenTen, we literally know she has enough chakra to use the 6th Pass chakra tools, which we are told definitively require large amounts of chakra to use. That version of TenTen with the 6th Pass tools was strong enough to be scaled relative to Edo Kakuzu and above the Gold and Silver brothers, but we also know that it is implied that TenTen eased up with some of her shinobi training following the war because she was trying to launch that business that nobody goes to. But even if we say she just stayed at the level she was at, so relative to Kakuzu when she's using those tools, they would go a very long way when being used on an idiot like Hidari, especially if he ends up speaking the wrong word. I do understand it though, the idea to basically do what Tsunade told the elders in the Pain arc, which is allow for the new generation to move forward and do the heavy lifting to protect the village. This current cast is only 1 year younger than most of the people from Naruto's generation who she was talking about. They were 16, in some cases 17, and in Boruto's generation, these kids are 15. But I strongly believe the narrative is missing out on having those shinobi be used to serve in support roles for these battles, if for no other reason to highlight how much stronger some of the new generation has gotten by shoving that fat pill down people's mouths, in particular certain fans who are still holding on to cope that certain characters from Shippuden would be relative in the Boruto era when they absolutely get blown out the water. You at least get the opportunity to have something to weigh it against and measure the new generation against the old generation in most concrete scaling. The irony here though is Ikimoto has talked about in the past about how he's heavily inspired by Dragon Ball's manga, and you see it in the artwork. You really see it in the way that he panels, and you really see it in the way he uses characters like Amato, Ada, Damon, Kawaki, Code, and all the other cyborgs that Amato made being used to pay homage to Dr. Gero and his collection of 4 cyborgs when you include himself. And most importantly, he made 17 other androids fully robotic. Yet one thing that Dragon Ball's manga, and by extension Naruto's manga, managed to do better is not completely throw away the fighters of the past, even when you're building up a new generation. Goku's son got introduced and we saw his role gradually increase, even when a majority of the cast from early Dragon Ball got severely power cliffed out of relevancy. Not even Piccolo was above something like that, but even then, You still had someone like Tien show up in the final arc to have his character come full circle, complete his character arc by saving Goku's son, who was wearing the uniform of the Turtle Hermit School that Tien tried to assassinate when he first met Goku. With Naruto's manga, as we saw, Naruto and Team 7, they grow stronger, but we also saw the roles of Kakashi's generation and Tsunade's generation begin to take a step back, but even as they took a step back, we saw more increases in their power in the short times that they were fighting, with the exception obviously being the Kage in the 4th Ninja War when they fought against Madara. Kakashi and Guy, for the most part, they played a support role to the new generation in the 4th Ninja War, in particular the battles with Obito and Madara. We haven't really seen that with Boruto, and honestly, I don't think that we ever will, because we've really hit that Dragon Ball element. I know some of you guys get super annoyed, like, why do you keep bringing up Dragon Ball? Like, bring it up because in order to understand what the narrative is doing, you have to understand where the inspiration is coming from with certain characters and with certain character arcs and with certain plot points. When you have Shino and Choji and etc., they've been power clipped out of relevancy to a point where no amount of hacks that they have via some hidden jutsu passed down by members of their clan is going to be enough to close that gap in power. Shino starts using bugs, and then Hidari just whips out ninja art bug spray and they all die somewhere. Outside of the 3 characters I mentioned, Sakura and Lee, they're the only ones who have the combat powers to at least participate and not get blown out the water, and that's just based off the information we have, because they are literally the only 2 we have concrete scaling for from their generation after the 4th Ninja War. And the issue with that is that we don't know, say with Gar, if he was referring to base Lee using his full power, or if he was referring to Lee using the 6th and the 7th gate, which is where I tend to think that's the case, the latter. But that'll be another video for another day. Normally, I'm all for the decision to have the younger cast be the ones thrust into the spotlight. I think it's smart to do that. Like I've said in the past, if you want to go see Naruto's generation, go read Naruto, go watch Naruto, because the story, it made it clear from day one. The narrative is centered around the new generation and their growth. It made it clear that if you're reading because you want to see what's going on with the old generation, they were rarely going to be shown. Look, man, let's just have some real talk here for a second, right? Like, you are listening to someone who, if you add up the totality of all the videos I have on this channel and all the Naruto videos from KRYPTONIAN saying, we'll even throw those out the window because those are private at the Naruto videos. If you just add up all the Naruto videos on this channel, all of the shorts I have on this channel, about 65 to 70% of the content overall is Naruto content, but eventually it's going to skew more Boruto because Boruto is the new thing that is ongoing. So more of my content has been Boruto because that's what you guys want. I've kind of accepted, hey, the old generation, they're in the trash can right now. Just like I, as a Star Wars fan, have pretty much accepted, hey, the Skywalker saga, that's done. They're moving away from it. But as a Star Wars fan, I'm just happy to get more content. And that's the approach I've taken with Naruto. So I don't want somebody to watch this and say, my God, just being a Boruto tart. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just calling balls and strikes down the middle. I don't care if it hurts somebody's feelings, it don't make them feel some kind of way or whatever. What I'm saying has logical fact to it. And it hurts me to say that again. I would love to sit there and do a 30-minute Minato video essay. Or instead of just stopping at 15 facts about Minato and Madara and etc., do a whole 30 to 50 facts. I'm not going to do that stuff when the audience has moved more so towards wanting Boruto content because Boruto's ongoing, and so the story is giving us a similar approach. Hence, you're not seeing the old generation show up. Does that suck as an OG Naruto fan? Absolutely. You would love to see more of the old generation cast. However, Boruto being the second highest selling manga in V-Jump magazine and the sales remaining steady where they are and there being a barely noticeable increase when Naruto and Sasuke were even featured in the manga prominently when you get past the movie arc, they've seen enough data to say, hey, this is the smart play to make. I just take it and roll with it. Again, I'm just grateful to be getting more Naruto content. We could have been in a drought like Dragon Ball was for over 10 years. I know that's me getting a little bit off subject right there, but somebody got to say the quiet part out loud. A lot of people that are dissatisfied with Boruto is coming from the fact that we're not getting a chance to see the characters we saw grow up get to shine in all their glory as adults, because a lot of people probably didn't feel like they got closure at the end of Naruto, which is absolutely fine. But that doesn't mean you get to say try and dictate what the story should do, because based on the direction it's going in, Shueisha's seen something to where they like it. It's on us to either continue reading or not read. I'm going to read because I love the franchise that much. And by franchise, I mean the Naruto franchise. I can kind of see where the narrative's going, and I agree with it to an extent. I don't particularly like it, but I agree with it when I take my emotions out of it and I look at it from a narrative perspective. And in particular, the idea to have them now start to show Naruto's very confident claim that he made to the Kage that the new generation would surpass all the Kage at the table, including himself, under the right circumstances, which is why Naruto, the security blanket for the ninja world, being taken away because everyone thinks he's dead, that needing to be the catalyst for what Naruto saw happening, I think it's the right move. But the lack of mention with the old generation outside of Shikamaru and Ino and Sai, it is a bit alarming, which at least with those three characters, it makes the most sense, because how they have been written, it is in character and it is best suited for their characters. Shikamaru is calling his shots via strategy. People saying, why ain't the Hokage out there fighting on the front lines? You know, Naruto said, I'm the Hokage now, so I'm going to give my life to defend the village. That ain't never been Shikamaru. The moment Shikamaru gets on the battlefield, that's a last option. That's why Tsunade wasn't rushing out there in the pain arc. Tsunade was best suited trying to heal everybody and protect everyone instead of going out there onto the battlefield. You have Ino for communication, and you have Sai for gathering information, like we saw with the whole thing with Amato. But right now, the ball, it is being dropped. I think you kind of have to show Sakura, I don't know, healing someone who got injured severely in order to check off the medical aspect. I think you need to show Rock Lee in a gag moment where he's on the toilet because he drank some bad protein powder or he ate too much fiber, in order to explain why he isn't there in the fight. But I do believe the narrative, it is making a mistake here. But one thing that is not a mistake is clicking here on the left for my new Chainsaw Man chapter review, or clicking here on the right for the Boruto chapter review if you haven't watched that already.